win over Penn State. We'll get to the special teams, Claire, but I'm going to make a segue and stay on the positive route because another special teams issue, and because of the Saquon Barkley factor, Ohio State kept going with either pooch kicks with a kickoff or the squib kicks, trying to squib it across the field. And on that final kick, after taking the lead, Juwan Johnson, who's a starting wide receiver for Penn State, was on the field. I don't know if he's regularly on the field for special teams, or they just put him out there to do exactly what he did, and that's stop the football and move it up to the 41-yard line. So this is a credit to the Ohio State defense. 41-yard line, still $1:48 left on the clock, and only needing a field goal. So needing to move the ball for a desperation kick about 20 yards, for a reasonable kick more like 30 yards. So that Penn State offense in that situation is going to accomplish that even against a really good defense most of the time. And so despite all the euphoria of coming back and taking the lead, the special teams put them in a precarious situation again, and that defensive line just stopped them right there. It was just, they couldn't even move the ball, couldn't set up the pass, just chasing McSorley, throwing him down. They just blew up the game.
They were absolutely on fire after that. It was like a shark that had smelled blood in the water. And I think at that point they had known they had fought so hard for this that they were not going to let it go. It was something that they were not going to allow another unit to basically lose this game for them. We talked a lot about discipline on this team and the amount of penalties that are still being incurred. Ohio State is one of the most, I'm talking like bottom of the barrel, one of the most penalized teams in the nation right now. And it continued to be a problem against Penn State. Special teams is sloppy, to say the least. There are some areas on special teams where Ohio State is actually excelling. So the good news is they can kind of drill down into these certain areas and hopefully get some of this shored up. But it was maddening as a fan watching them kick to Saquon Barkley or to say, hey, like, why can't they kick it out of the end zone? Urban Meyer mentioned in a press conference just today that they physically can't. He said, we're the only team in the NCAA that cannot kick it out of the back of the end zone. So I'm saying let's get some walk-ons out there at this point.
Yeah, at least for next season, go recruit a guy. You've got 105 guys on that roster. You can have one guy who does absolutely nothing else but just kick the ball through the back of the end zone.
That doesn't seem like a whole lot to ask. That's the one job. Just the one job.
It is crazy, but the defensive effort was exceptional. There was an interception in the end zone by, I'm getting Denzel Ward and Damon Webb confused. I believe it was Denzel Ward who made the interception in the corner of the end zone. And that was the one call that I thought was completely blown by the officials. Damon Arnett was called for pass interference. He basically put his hands just about as gently as you can for a football player on the receiver's chest for like 3 seconds, maybe, with all the hand fighting that was going on the rest of the time, and they called him for interception. And Denzel Ward came over and made a phenomenal interception, but that set up Penn State for another touchdown when they called it back.
Again, it seems like discipline issues, but then we also took a look at this officiating in this game, and it was certainly questionable. I'm the last person to toot that horn. I'm the first person to get on Jim Harbaugh every time he complains about officiating and blaming losses on officials.
Well, maybe not the last one. Maybe not the last person to jump on Jim Harbaugh.
Maybe not the last one. You're right. But certainly it was one of those things where when you're trying to fight your way out of this hole, you need all the momentum that you possibly can. And it just felt like every time the Buckeyes tried to get some momentum to get out of this hole, something like that would happen.
So the touchdown reception by Penn State, in which there was the fight for the football in the end zone, what was your thought and interpretation on that?
Well, I've seen it 100 times. What I don't understand, I will say that, obviously both of them have the ability, the same right to that football, right? It didn't look like the receiver had possession of the ball. I wouldn't say necessarily that it looked like an interception, but it was ruled as an interception on the field. What I don't understand is how they have enough evidence in the booth or otherwise to then reverse that call. It has to be irrefutable evidence. There has to be no possible doubt. I want to know what angle they saw where they said not only is it not an interception, it's a touchdown. That was difficult for me. And again, not just from an Ohio State fan standpoint, but like, how does it get flipped so hard the other way?
Yeah, I agree. I would have been fine with whatever was called on the field being confirmed or not necessarily confirmed. It couldn't be reversed with irrefutable evidence by the replay. So for me, when they went up for the ball, I thought the wide receiver caught the ball initially. So back before the catch had to be secured through the entire play, that would be a touchdown in my book. Receiver catches the ball. He's in the end zone. So it's not a play where he needs to be tackled. The play's over. Again, I'm going back to old interpretation of rules. But in the course of completing the play, you've got to be able to go to the ground and complete the catch. The ball was as they were somewhere between being upright and going to the ground completely. The defensive back, I think it was Damon Webb, wrestled the ball away from the wide receiver to a certain extent. And that's where it gets very cloudy. I'm not saying it was an easy call to make, because it wasn't. But again, whatever should have been, whatever was called on the field should have stood. Fortunately, it didn't affect the outcome of the game.